Hello everyone. I want to introduce you to the first chapter in my book, Daughters of the King. I talk about the creation story. The creation story is just such an important story in understanding so many things in the Bible, especially when we come to other stories of men and women together. So what is the creation story about? In Genesis chapter 1, we have 6 days of creation. We start off with a world that's empty and void. It's chaos. Really, everything is disordered. And by the time we come to day 6, everything is ordered. The water is separated. There's day, there's night. Everything is in its place. It's functioning well. And the climax of the creation order on day 6 is the creation of a man and women, or men and women. They're called Adam, humans, and they are created in God's image. And being in image is to represent God. It's a position wherein they represent God's rule on this earth. And day 7 is actually the climax of creation. God is at rest. Rest not as in having a Sunday afternoon nap, but rest, everything is ordered, and he can sit on his throne and rule because there is order, everything is in its place, it's functioning well. That's the picture of Genesis chapter 1. And then you go to Genesis chapter 2, and the creation order is different. In Genesis chapter 2, the man is created first, then the animals, and then finally the woman is created because the man needs a helper. He's looked at all the animals, none of them suffice. He needs a helper, and the woman is created. But before the woman is created, the man is placed in this garden, and his task is to watch over it, to cultivate it, or to guard and cultivate, however you want to put it. But those are the words that are given to the priests when the tabernacle is first constructed, those two words together. The priests are to watch over the garden or over the tabernacle as the man is to watch over the garden. But he can't do it by himself. That's the point. He needs a helper. Not just any kind of helper. He doesn't need a servant. He doesn't need a slave. He needs a helper that is equal to him. And the word that is used for this helper is Azar. And the idea of that kind of a helper is someone who is your equal or greater. In the Bible, it's used for a military alliance, like kings to one king to another, or it's used of God. That's the kind of helper that the man needs, and he gets that kind of a helper in the woman who's taken from his side. They are equal. She, along with him, are to be priests in this garden. But then we come to chapter 3 in Genesis, and everything falls apart. Disorder comes back into the world. There's now conflict between the man and the woman. The conflict comes from an act of disobedience. The only command that they have of what not to do, they are to guard are to be the watch people of the garden and to make sure it functions well. But the only command that they are given in the negative is not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But they're both there because when the woman sees the fruit, she takes it, eats it, and gives it to the man who's beside her. The implication is that he's right there with her. He's not saying, don't do this. They're both together in this act of disobedience. But immediately after the act of disobedience, when God confronts them, the man blames the woman blames the serpent has no one to blame. But this blame game has started, and it carries out throughout the rest of the Bible. So when you read stories of women and men and you want to know who's who in these stories, look for how they relate to Genesis chapters 1 to 3? Are they a Genesis chapter 1 or 2 story? Or are they a Genesis chapter 3 story with the conflict? Who looks and takes and gives or sends? Let me give you an example of the story of David and Bathsheba. It's a very important story in the Bible. David sees, he sends, and he takes. Those are Genesis chapter 3 words. So we need to understand what Genesis chapter 1 is about so that we can interpret these other stories, which I will talk about in other sessions as well. Thank you for your time.